Good afternoon and welcome to Meet the Candidates here on Surge TV for the SUSU 2022 elections. Today I am being joined by the VP Welfare candidates. Oh, hello. Hey. Oh, he'll get an introduction too. Well, we're joined by the VP Welfare candidates and the dog. And I guess no better time than the present to sort of introduce everyone. So if you would like to go first up. Who you are, what you do.
Hello, I'm Selin Mustafa and I do history. I'm second year and I would love to be VP of Welfare and Community.
Hi, I'm Aisha Atas Diadamo. I study philosophy, politics and economics. I'm a third year and I would really like to be your VP Welfare and Community too.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Ruby Turner and I'm a third year psychology student and I would also really like to be your VP Welfare and Community, and Max as well is kind of part of me, I guess you could say. He's essentially my emotional support animal. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't think about this one. Apparently, there is a specific microphone for me and a microphone for you, and I'd just forgotten that, so sorry. Sorry, can I just say, I love the dog. What was his name again?
His name is
Max.
Max.
Moomaloo.
He has a little sausage.
Those are all very, very pretty names. I love that. Well, I guess there's going to be some questions for him. There'll be some questions for you guys as well, I guess. So yeah, let's get started, I guess. So the first question I have in my big list of questions is, if I can do this with one hand. I guess the main question that, and I've asked everyone this, why did you apply for the role of VP Welfare and Community? So if we start with Aisha in the middle, because the microphone's close. Yeah, pick up that one. Sorry, I should have said. It should be. Oh, give it a second.
Does that work?
Ah, fantastic.
So the reason I applied for VP Welfare and Community is because I'm really passionate about improving welfare on campus. So I founded CASHES last year, which is the Consent Awareness Society, and I've kind of been done that a lot and stuff like that, and really wanted to improve sexual health on campus and also tackle sexual harassment and things like that. But also I've used the services myself on campus, and I know that there are some services that could be improved and things like that. And I think from a first-hand perspective I can kind of improve them as well. But then also I've noticed that there's a lot of bureaucracy within how welfare things are run at the uni, so I really want to take a bottom-up approach and get more people and more students involved in leading welfare policies and things like that.
Well, that sounds fantastic. So I'll pass you over to Selin.
Yeah, so I really wanted to become a welfare officer because I began my university career during the pandemic, and although there were things in place to help ease us into it, ultimately I think most people felt very isolated and felt that everything available to us seemed a little bit out of reach.
Yeah.
And even though things are improving, I think it's about, for me, I want to support the second years who never really got that opportunity and start from the freshers and make sure that there are better systems in place for people to access any help that they need or feel less isolated in their time here at university.
That's fantastic. We pass it over to Ruby and Max.
Ruby and Max. So I guess my motivation for applying for this role was I had an incredibly difficult integration period into university.
Yeah.
I do struggle with depression and anxiety, and I was incredibly unwell after having freshers flu. I actually was bedridden for a few months. My sleep pattern basically reversed, and I wasn't going out, and I didn't make friends as a result of that. And the first friend I did make in university did actually pass away, took their life, and I I really want to do something to prevent this from happening further, because I really think it's in our power to make a change, and I think we can save lives, and I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Especially as male suicide rates are so high, and there's this social construct that men can't express their feelings, and I really think that this is something we need to put a stop to.
Yeah. No. I think all three of you have raised extremely, I think, sort of important and I would say sort of hot button issues, I guess, or sort of issues that I think are very close to a lot of people and are just very, very, I'd say, important in that way. And I guess it's one of these things where there's so many, I guess, affecting young people now and today. There are so many big issues in that way, and it's not a matter of choosing, like, you have to, I guess, tackle everything in this role. And it's one of those things where I get the feeling people expect a lot of one person to do, basically fix everything. And I think I think all three of you have such a sort of, and I for lack of a better word, sort of interesting perspective, or like a different perspective on how, you know, what sort of issues we can sort of focus on as the Students' Union, but also, you know, as the university as a whole, or as the student body as a whole. And I guess the first thing I was going to say is, so Salon, you started, so you're a second year, right? So you've never been to uni at a time before COVID, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. Now, I think, so both of you, you're third years, and I've been here for 3 years as well. So it's like, we had that year where things were normal, and then things were suddenly very unnormal. And I think one thing I've noticed, definitely, as a society president, is just how different and how difficult it has been for people who are just only used to COVID times and lockdown sort of uni experience, and sort of getting used to that, and sort of coming back out of it in second year, essentially having a second freshers experience. And we're not going to have exactly the same problem next year, but we're still going to have lots of people whose time at uni, or actually this will be the first group of people who will have been at uni at a time where it's not lockdown, but it's post-COVID in that sense. I mean, I know COVID's still a thing, but, you know, we're past the lockdowns, hopefully, fingers crossed. How do you want to reach out, Salon, to say next year's freshers who are in this sort of new normal post-COVID world? And how do you think the sort of VP welfare sort of role, how do you think you can help people in that position?
I think what's important to understand is that the new freshers coming in most of them would have spent their time at school through COVID. So it's actually about letting them adjust to the situation. And a lot of the stuff is online, and I think that although having things online has been really useful in COVID and it has helped us get through it, I think people struggle as it seems like your whole world is like online and you feel really disconnected from everything. And a lot of the time we find out about events and different activities are happening through emails, and I think it feels very formal, and I think people don't want to be sitting through and reading all these different emails just to have connection and better experiences. So I think what's important for me is to actually start introducing more in-person ways of communicating things. Perhaps when people like move into halls or have their first like days at uni, have like just like little leaflets and things that communicate to people that there are things out there without them having to find it online, because sometimes that is just too overwhelming for people to access, particularly if they are like struggling with their mental health. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to have it in a very compact and easy to access way, and alternative ways as well. So I'm not saying scrap all the online stuff, but do a couple different things so people can get it however they like.
Yeah, so sort of like a sort of blended approach. So it's not just one, it's not just the other, it's a bit of both, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, well, I mean, you know, as someone who remembers the time before all of this, where the idea of doing things over the internet was like, you know, I guess if we really have to, but it's like, there's never anyone sort of making us do it, or a reason really to force us to do it. And I think that is it is kind of understated at uni just how much of an impact that makes not having that sort of in-person connection with people. And I think, you know, a lot of people have struggled for it, and anything that can be done to address it is going to be a positive thing. So that's all sounding very, very good. So Aisha, I was going to ask you a bit about sort of some of the campaigns and stuff that you have run before, but also some of the things that you're planning to do and have mentioned in the manifesto. So you mentioned caches. So I guess for people, because I mean, I know what caches is, but for the audience who may be watching us who don't, would you mind explaining what caches does?
So caches is the university's Consent Awareness and Sexual Health Education Society.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my housemate Lauren founded it last year because we thought that, well, we had a lot of students, we spoke to a lot of students who said that they felt like the university was kind of disconnected with things that involved like tackling sexual harassment and also educating people on like consent and stuff. There are a lot of universities that have sex education and consent workshops during freshers and things like that. That's not something that the university offers. So we thought if we set up a society that we could offer these things as well and also be a pathway for support for students.
Well, that sounds fantastic because, well, you know, I can attest to this myself. You know, I've had those sorts of negative experiences out of uni. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but like, you know, I've been in that situation where I have been harassed, and it's impossible really you don't really know where to turn or who to talk to, and you know, the SUSU does more than nothing, but it could go a long way more, or it could be a lot better. And you know, there's always, I think with everything there's always room for improvement, but I think that's one very key area that, you know, needs to be addressed. And I know one of the presidential candidates is talking about mandatory consent training. I'm assuming you'd be in support of that. Yeah,
definitely. I think one of my points in my manifesto is to create a Southampton Says Enough campaign.
Yes.
So Central SU in London, I was a student there for 1 year, had an incredible campaign called Central Says Enough. So I'd like to take the foundations of that and kind of bring it over here, but also change it quite a little bit so it fits Southampton more and like the students that we have here. So as part of that, mandatory like consent training and sex education workshops will be involved in that. Yeah,
no, I think that would be fantastic because I think, again, it's one of those things where it feels like everyone, you know, we're told everyone on some level knows about it, but they don't really understand it, and there's a massive difference there. And I'd argue that's the same with a lot of sensitive issues. Like, I think pretty much everything that all three of you have raised are things that people, you know, they know about, but they don't know about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And any effort to change that, I think, would make such a big difference here and is sorely needed. And not to say, you know, the current VP welfare team or the welfare team here haven't tried. I just think there's so much more that can be done, and you know, there's so many mitigating circumstances.
Definitely, I think SUSU has quite a few things in place as well, like for example, report and support and things like that.
Yes.
That we as CASHES advise students to use and stuff. But it's not very well advertised, and there are a lot of things that students like should know about that aren't really there and stuff like that. So I didn't even know that stop tops were available in the Stags until like someone had actually told me about it. Had I not been on CASHES and just been a regular student, I probably wouldn't have realised unless I saw people using them.
Well, do you want to know something incredible now? I didn't realise that stop tops were available from Stags, so I think that completely proves your point.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, you're making that kind of purchase or trying to do something, and yet it's just not out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's just trying to reach the students and kind of advertise better, I think.
No, I think that's fantastic. So we're going to go over to Ruby and Max.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I'm just taken by the dog.
He's a very beautiful boy.
He is a very beautiful boy.
I think one thing I love about him is that he actually gets a lot of prejudice for the way that he looks and his breeding.
Yes,
but he is, in fact, incredibly sensitive, and you know, regardless of the way he looks, I don't think that should reflect his personality or his ability to be an incredibly emotional being.
I think people are very quick to judge, aren't they? And not just with people, but just with everything. And
exactly. And I think that's something that mirrors, you know, the way that we discriminate and things like that. It's not just people; it's also animals that are affected.
I can see that. And he is a beautiful boy. He has now walked off sadly, but I'm sure he'll join us again.
Might do, yeah.
Right, I will ask you a question that isn't about the dog, I promise.
Of course, yeah.
I won't, obviously, I don't like to I'm not going to go into, massive detail, but obviously you raised a very, very sensitive issue to you personally. And I just want to say, it's as someone who's gone through something very similar, I'm awestruck at just the ability of just someone to be able to come out and talk about something like that. So thank you for, being willing to share that. It couldn't have been easy. So one thing I was going to say is obviously you touched on it as well, anxiety and depression. And I think there are thousands of students out there, even at this uni, that have some experience with anxiety, depression, or both. I can attest to both.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, obviously we have a reasonably good sort of, in the city, but also just sort of around, we do have a sort of mental health safety net for everyone. But there's so much more I think the university could do in that regard. And I guess this is touched on similar ground to what Aisha and Salim have been saying, is there's so much potential to do more. And I guess what I'd want to ask, and it's a big ask, as VP Welfare, what would you want to do to sort of start addressing those problems? And don't worry, I'm not looking for fully fleshed out policies.
No, that's okay. So there's a couple of different policies I would like to implement. The first one would be an anonymous forum for students to be able to share their concerns with me in confidence, and then I would be able to give people that maybe don't have the confidence to speak out themselves to be able to allow me to address them for them and to give everyone a voice. I think this is something that would really help. So a lot of people just won't give feedback, and it can be very, anxiety causing. Often I wouldn't even say anything myself. I wouldn't even give feedback to a friend, maybe. Because I felt unable to actually express how I truly felt. And I would get frustrated with myself because of that. And I think that is something that other people, I'm sure, must share as well. So that is something I really think would help. I would also like to start a group. Essentially a support group, I guess you could say, to encourage students to, I guess create a sense of community and, to talk to each other, because that, like you said, mental health is rife, and it's, I guess a lot of people can feel isolated by that. But I don't think you should feel isolated. I think you should, actually feel like, okay, I share this issue, but so does everyone. All these other people also have this experience, and maybe there's, differences, but you can confide in each other in a safe space. And really, I guess, really get to understand that you're not alone. And I think that's really important. Like, listening is so important. Everyone should have a voice and everyone should be heard. And I think that's something I'd really want to work on. I also would like to start a buddy system for social and society events, because another thing that personal experience is I wouldn't go to events. At one point, I'm very, very close with Zumba. They did a lot for me. I met them in the second half of my first year, and they did amazing things for my mental health. But I remember a time when I went to a class and I stood outside and I didn't go in because I was too scared to go in on my own. And if I just had that one person to come with me, would I have started sooner? It does make me wonder. So I think having a buddy system, which, hopefully I would, or whoever would attend themselves, people in a similar position, you can all go off together. It's a way of making friends. It's a way of creating a community, I guess similar to the support group system. And I think also this is something that can help people reintegrate back into the university life after, possibly experiencing sexual harassment and things like that. It's one of the questions we were both, all three of us were asked. And I feel that, sorry, distracted for a moment there.
No, honestly, it's fine.
I feel that, where was I? I will get right back. One of the questions we were asked. What was I going to say? It's right there. I guess, having a support system would enable people to reintegrate back into university life. And I think this is something that people who have experienced any kind of trauma or had a difficult situation during a society event will really struggle to do. And even people who are actually instigators will also, struggle. I don't believe that people should be condemned instantly. I do believe in a no tolerance policy for sexual harassment and abuse or any kind of aggression. But I also believe that education should definitely be utilised before anything else.
Obviously, the people at home can't see, but there is a dog rolling around, and He is having a moment.
He's having a moment of zoomies. Yeah, apologies, guys.
No, honestly, it's fine. It's fine.
There was one last thing I really wanted to mention. Sorry.
No, it's fine,
I did get distracted. I didn't mean to take so long.
No, honestly, it's fine.
Is safety, and I think this is something that's really important, and I think it touches on something that's already been mentioned, but I also really believe that societies and, well, specifically committee members, I believe this should be available to all students, but that may not be possible, and I appreciate that. I would still look into it. But I think committee members, especially at social events, should have CPR and first aid training.
Definitely.
You know, how do we deal with a situation, you know, someone's been spiked or someone's got into a fight, and of course, you know, no one wants these situations to happen, but the reality is that they will happen. And you know, you need to know how to deal with that, and because it can be so incredibly important that action is taken immediately. I think, you know, I realised myself, you know, I'm a Zumba instructor. I wouldn't know what to do if someone collapsed in my class. And that is awful, you know, that is really awful. I need to educate myself. And I think this is something that should be available to all students, 100%, but definitely committee members at social events and sporting events as well. You know, people can collapse during sporting events. What do you do? And I wouldn't know. And this is something that I need to educate myself on, but I think definitely it should be spread.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Sorry, taking more time.
No, honestly, it's fine, because I feel like we've got so much to talk about as a result of that I can open to all three of you as well. And you touched on some really, really important points as well. And I just got to quickly say about the sort of first aid training and CPR. The second you said that, I've been thinking about this ever since I became station manager at Surge TV. It's just, you know, if we're away somewhere and it's really, I'm the sort of like, or on a shoot or doing something, what do we do when it goes wrong? I'd have to pay for first aid training myself, which is not always the most affordable thing, or, you know, paying for this training out of pocket. And it's something the university could absolutely offer. When I started working for the university briefly, and I had to take mandatory health and safety training, it was all an online course, but even just being offered that would be a stepping stone, you know. And something else I was going to say as well, the anonymous forum idea. I think that is a really, really strong sort of idea. And I think one way that we can already sort of see that working is that everyone running for VP Welfare has been asked some quite, you know, I would argue quite difficult to answer questions already in a place and a space that people feel safe to ask those kind of questions. And I thought that was sort of really, really telling. First of all, I'd say between the candidates here as well and the other person running for VP Welfare, I think it shows just how I'd say sort of personable all of you are, and how approachable I think all of you are as well. That people would ask quite, I would argue, quite sensitive questions, and feel like they can get an answer back as well. So that really speaks to you three, and also Mariam, who is not here today. So yeah, no, I just wanted to say that. And I guess that leads me to the sort of, you mentioned very briefly, he's still. No, honestly, it's fine. I wasn't sure if he was doing something. I was just curious. I guess that leads me to another question about the sort of, you mentioned the support group and buddy system. I guess this goes to all three of you, but I just want to say, ask what you think of systems like support groups and buddy systems. And you mentioned as well a story about you and going into Zumba.
Yeah.
Now, when you said that, again, I was having that sort of, I've been there. I've been in that place. And I feel like as much as many people don't want to admit it, we've all been that person. Maybe some people, maybe not as, you know, strongly as that, but we've all been in that sort of headspace and space where we feel like we just can't, you know, it's overwhelming almost. And, you know, I think any effort to try and help people with that is going to yield very positive results. And I guess my main question is, so some of the other, I think, candidates for VP activities and union president are also quite keen on working on a buddy system or bringing it back.
Yeah.
How would you, I know it's hard to answer because obviously they haven't been elected yet, and
okay.
It's quite a wide choice of people, but like, how would you work with the rest of the SABs to try and bring something like that together? And this goes to everyone, by the way.
Okay. I guess that's quite a difficult question to answer as to how we would work together. Yeah. I mean, you know, we would sit down and discuss the key issues that we would like to address, because I'm not going to pick up on everything, and I'm sure that someone else would see things from a completely different perspective to myself. And also I think that it's something, maybe putting out an anonymous poll where people can give their own input as well of how they would like to have these things implemented and the key features that they would really like. I think it would be important to get the perspective of the entire team for this reason. The roles do overlap. I saw Aisha got a similar question. There's a lot of things you want to implement regarding, the overlap with this. Well, you know what? Yeah, they do overlap. But it's incredibly difficult to, keep things in one rigid box, especially when, welfare and community is something that applies to everyone and through all aspects of university life and wider life. So, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent
honestly,
there.
It's fine. I mean, welfare and community, it's such a broad term, let's be honest. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably a fact checker somewhere in here that could verify this, but I'm pretty sure it used to be 2 separate SAB roles that eventually got put together at some point. And it's got a broad reach, and there's a lot that I guess you're responsible for in that way, but I guess this is the point of the SAB system. There's 5 of you. And I guess it's being that sort of, like, for lack of a better word, sort of a human face to put behind sort of SUSU's other policies for sort of outreach and welfare. So I guess passing over to Aisha.
Sorry, it's
No, honestly, it's fine. So I guess sort of based on what we were just discussing now, I guess, working with both the sort of the SABs, but also, I guess, the Students' Union. I mean, with the Southampton Says Enough campaign and stuff like that, you're going to have to work with both, I would argue, probably not just for SABs, but also SUSU as a whole, and maybe even the university to get it, where it needs to be. I'm not expecting sort of, bullet point, I want to do this by this date, but do you have sort of like a rough idea of how you'd want to go about doing it? Have you talked to people from Central Says Enough, let's say?
So definitely. So obviously I was a student there as well. So I know the foundations of the campaign, and that's how I want to bring it here. But also from being on Cashes, we've had so many connections with so many charities, organisations, with SUSU themselves, the wellbeing team especially. We've got connections with nightclubs and things like that. So I helped run the Girls Night In campaign as well. So
I see.
So that was the Cashes version of that. And so we did the boycott of nightclubs and stuff like that. So we formed some great connections with nightclubs and nightlife and things like that. So I kind of want to use those connections to kind of put it in place and kind of get it ready. And I think that with regards to the sexual consent workshops and things like that, there are a few members of Cashes who are trained to actually do that and stuff. So it wouldn't be so much as having to bring in an independent body and pay lots of money. It can be as simple as Cashes giving a demonstration, or even they can come in and do a workshop, or we could even make an online version about sexual consent and sexual health available online and stuff like that. And then there's obviously a lot of other elements that kind of go into the campaign as well, such as anti-spiking and things like that. And I know that SUSU have got a SUSU safe thing.
Yes.
And so a lot of my things aren't about spending lots of money and implementing new things, but improving the things that we already have and kind of making them better advertising them. And also kind of there is an element of improving some of them as well. So for example, report and support can be improved a lot better. And I think the best way to do that, I think I've mentioned throughout my campaign, is student-led groups and stuff, working with the officers, because the wellbeing SAB obviously oversees the officers. We have a BAME officer, wellbeing officer, women's officer and stuff like that. So utilising their roles as well to kind of support with the campaign and kind of make it travel forwards. So
No, that sounds fantastic. I mean, one thing as well that I noticed is you said something. You mentioned that there sort of is SUSU doesn't really advertise the things that it offers, and I'd say that's such a, when it comes to welfare especially, a massive issue. I feel like a lot of people now probably have seen the safety bus about, let's say.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I really don't think realise that you can just get into it. I think because I take it a lot. And I just see a lot of people walk past, and I think a lot of that is just because you assume that you have to book it in advance, or there's a system that you don't know about. And it's we offer so many great things already. Room for improvement, no doubt about it, but we offer a lot already. it'd be fantastic to see some, effort going into sort of advertising those services better, I think. And
I think, so I went to the nightclub forum, and someone actually raised a brilliant point about the quality of like the SUSU bus, like the labelling of it and stuff like that, and how like it didn't look like approachable and things like that. It looks kind of scary. It could just be like a random van in the street and stuff like that. And so that's been raised by a student, and that's something that I really want to tackle as well. And so like in my campaign, I've kind of put to improve like the safety bus service. I want to implement a timetable as well, so students know when it's going to be running. Like loads of students don't know that it runs and you can like get into it and stuff like that. So having a timetable that's online, you know how like Unilink has like their timetable and stuff. You can like add the safety bus on there, even add it in the Southampton app, just a little timetable, so students know that they can just get into it. Like it's there, it's for them to use, you know.
No, and that would be fantastic. I mean, lately they've just bought a new one, I have noticed on my way home, and it's now got this massive sort of big sign that says safety bus. But it took them, I want to say, I've been taking a safety bus since I started here, so it's taken them 2.5 years to put safety bus on the side. And I just can't, in my head, I just sort of think of all the people who have been put off by it just being a sort of, I think you said put it very well, sort of scary looking, sort of massive white van. That it just doesn't feel right. And, I think making it more obvious that these services exist, and report and support, of course, is something you mentioned before. I think that could go such a long way to helping people.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that the SUSU social media accounts and things like that can be used like more effectively to promote well-being stuff and things like that. There's a lot of like, not a lot of stuff kind of goes into it. Like Cash's ran like the awareness campaign for sexual harassment, like Awareness Week and stuff like that. That wasn't really like advertised on the SUSU thing. So it's about like bridging those gaps and kind of finding where those gaps are and like linking them up so that students can have access and they can find things that are more visible and stuff like that. So
and I think that'd be fantastic. And also you mentioned, as well as sexual harassment, you've also mentioned sexual health as well, which I think, let's be honest, it's one of the things that people sort of avoid talking about because it's mildly embarrassing.
There we go.
And I think it's one of those things that being brought to, I think people need to have that sort of, it needs that kind of attention.
Definitely,
I really do think things like Let's Talk About It at the NHS.
Very incredible,
is a really, really useful service. And, I know that it's sort of impacted people in my own life. And, oh, hello.
Hello.
No, I love it. It's fine.
Sorry, guys.
No, honestly, it's fine. It's fine. I think it adds some quite needed levity sometimes having a dog here. So
I think it helps with the...
It does, yeah. No, it does, because we've talked about some heavy things, and I think just having that sort of little bit of light relief. Aww. Sweet. But Aisha, very, very quickly, I was going to say, I just think that's such a good idea to sort of promote the idea that, yes, these sort of sexual health facilities and clinics and STI testing, all of that is actually available for free.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still don't realise this and don't take the proper precautions.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that Caches has really tried to push this year as well. But also in my campaign, I did mention that I wanted an on-campus medical space / safe space thing that would operate fortnightly and stuff like that. I think having it fortnightly makes it easier to implement. As a first, it would be easier to get the whole team on board and kind of implementing it.
Oh, it would.
But also that safe space uses all the resources that the university offers, but just puts them in one space, so that people can obviously have access to them and it can be advertised better. But also, we don't really. I know that SUSU is running a HIV testing thing at some point this month, but we don't really have Let's Talk About It. Come on campus and do chlamydia testing. I remember when I went to uni somewhere else, we'd have people from sexual health things in the bathroom, and they'd be like, "You can do a chlamydia test here. Pee on this stick, and then we'll." Send it off and you'll get a text and stuff like that. And that's something that we can do on campus. Hello. That's okay.
And that, seriously, that alone, if we could do that here, that would be incredible, I think. And so many people would, I think it would improve, I think it would improve the lives of a lot of people.
Exactly.
I think, because one of the biggest things, I can see, it's a sensitive issue, of course, and it's one that I think, especially with guys, provokes a lot of sort of, not just anxiety, but they just sort of don't want to deal with it, And
exactly.
sorry, I'm just going to slate all men here. Sorry.
It can be embarrassing as well.
It is.
Like
Well,
going along and stuff like that.
You don't want to talk to your GP that you've had forever, or I guess if you here at uni, you don't want to talk to them about stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's really stigmatized. So I think like by having like obviously with caches and stuff, by having that we've tried to like end the stigma of like lots of things. And like we did a advent calendar this Christmas on like our Instagram page, and that's got some amazing facts about a lot of like sexual health things that are like stigmatized and sex education things that are stigmatized. So I think like it's really important to kind of advertise that, give people a safe space to kind of access it. Like I probably wouldn't want to go to my GP and be like, hi, I need like some sort of test or something. But if I could go on campus and take a friend with me, and it's like just I can pick it up and go do it at home and then just post it or send it off or something. That's available to me and I can use it.
I think just all of that would eliminate a lot of the stigma that people have, and well, it'd lead to a healthier uni.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and a happier one too, I think.
Yeah, so, definitely.
I think that was fantastic. Now,
thank you.
Go to you, Salen, because I guess. I mean, so when we were talking earlier about sort of making sure that things are available sort of in person and online as well, and, you know, sort of being able to reach students as well, how would you work with SUSU or the SABs, or sort of what would you have in mind? Like, what would you want to do first? Like, what would you want to conquer first?
I think it's really important to make use of the other officers. It's not about dominating the space and saying this is what I want to do and I've got all the ideas. I think lots of officers that work with the welfare of VP would like have loads of ideas but kind of feel a bit like stuck in actually getting their ideas through. So I really want to like make use of everyone, and particularly with welfare and community, it's not as structured as the other areas, and I want to, for example, sports is an amazing way of supporting people and getting them to feel like comfortable and bring them out their shell a little bit. But it is like important that I talk to the sports VP and think of the best solutions. So whilst I might like bring a different perspective, it's about encouraging them to view things in a slightly different way, as opposed to saying, well, this is what I'm going to do, which is separate to what you're doing. It's about making sure everything is linked, and as a student that makes everything a lot more clear if you know that everyone is working towards the same goal, and that's of your well-being.
And I guess it's in some ways maybe not with every issue, but sort of there's a level of compromise, I think, involved, or sort of working with other people sort of to work with sort of the ideas that you have and trying to work with other people to try and see, you know, what fits everyone in that way. Did you say we've got time for one more question? Like a long question or a short question or a medium? Oh, good. Well, that rules out what's everyone's favourite colour, I guess. If we have time. I guess, well, I've sort of asked already kind of a question about sort of what your plan is if you were elected. I guess the last question, sort of, I'm just having a quick look through the notes just to see if there's anything I missed. I think one thing I would say is if there was one issue, like the current setup that we have at SUSU, if there is one particular thing, and let's say you're elected and you can only change one thing in the entire year, I think for all three of you that would be devastating. But if there was one particular issue that is close to you, which one would you choose? I guess I'll ask you to prioritise.
I think my thing is that I really want to do, and it might be difficult to do, but I want to make a centralised support system, a place where perhaps a website or a section within the Southampton website where people can literally type in their concerns and be directed to the right place. It is a little bit disconnected at the moment, and I think people have issues of completely different severities. It might just be I want to do this activity and I don't know what to do, or I am really struggling with my mental health, or I feel really disconnected from my community. I want there to be a place where you can either type in your concern or online, or maybe a call line where people can actually directly access it and be linked to the right area, just to help bring everything together. Because when you're in a place where you really need help, you don't want people to be forced to be searching through different websites and different links to find that support. It's about making sure everything is there at the touch of a button, so people don't feel scared or overwhelmed with receiving the help that they really need and that we can offer. Because, like we've discussed before, there is so much going on that a lot of us just don't know about. And myself, I know that there is so much that I don't know about still. And I'm in second year, and I think if I had known this from the start, it would have been brilliant. So I think it's about bringing it all together, and that comes in to with working with the other sabbatical officers to make sure that this happens really effectively.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you. I think that's all I got. Okay, Aisha?
So I think one of the things that I really want to do is the on-campus medical / safe space thing, because that's something I can envision lasting a long time, and also something that I can envision for the start of the year after, like 2023, that could be put into the student hub and be like a permanent thing. And I think that having the on-campus medical space that tackles like a lot of things, like people who need like disability support can find someone there to get that support and things like that. The SUSU, I try and get the SUSU advice team present, like the wellbeing team, like disability and inclusion and stuff like that, but also outside charities and organisations, and especially with the STI and like HIV testing that I want to implement on campus. And I think that that would be a really important resource, especially with wait lists for support and things taking like a really, really long time. Sometimes it's really hard to go to the University Health Service and get an appointment just for like admin and stuff. If we could have someone there present on the on-campus thing, it would, like, you know, cut wait lists for like a lot of things across campus, which means that people that need like specific support from the university will get seen to quicker, and then also everyone that could get seen to via the on-campus medical space can get seen to quicker, because there'll be like no appointments and things like that. You just drop in and stuff like that. And I think that also that's kind of a resource that can be offered to all students, especially like postgrads and WSA students and Knox, which we often forget about and things like that. So although I'd like to do it in the SUSU foyer, I also want to do it at WSA and at Knox as well, and like have those spaces there for them to use, and we can like alternate on a basis and stuff like that. And so like the resources kind of span across everyone. So I think that that's really important.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. And also just one little point. I like, you also get as well the need of sort of like that gradual change almost. So like sort of rolling it out fortnightly and then ramping it up as time goes on. Yeah,
exactly. Because I think it's important that if we start rolling out fortnightly, we can get student feedback, see if they want like more different types of charities to come in or different types of people to come in and things like that. And then we can kind of take that feedback on board and then kind of gradually move it into the student hub so that it's a permanent space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, and then Ruby?
Thank you. I think mine would be focused on safety, as I mentioned. You know, CPR training, first aid training, also conflict resolution, dealing with sexual harassment, as well as violent situations. I think, you know, these are life skills that everyone should have. You know, I strongly believe that first aid and CPR should be something that is ingrained into us, you know, throughout our school life. You know, you can save lives by doing it. Why are we not, you know, why is this not a basic, you know, skill, I guess you could say. I think that, oh, I've gone again. Sorry, guys.
No,
it will be coming back.
It's fine.
What was the other thing? Oh yeah, I think it's really important that this is implemented, you know, especially for freshers, but also transfer students as well. I think, like, you know, in your first week of university, you don't actually have any lectures, you have all these introductory things. And I think this is the opportunity to implement and, you know, create awareness for things like this, you know, not only by, you know, improving advertisements for them, you know, through social media, but also like posters and things like that. Of course, we need to be, you know, aware of sustainability, ensuring they're recyclable or maybe a different material. That's something I don't actually know about, but yeah, I think definitely, you could have sessions in your first week. You could attend a workshop for CPR, a workshop first aid, a workshop for conflict resolution and things like that. And also obviously improving awareness of the services that are already available.
Yeah.
We've got the Student Life team, which are available 24/7. Samaritans are also available 24/7, and they're excellent services. Obviously, Samaritans is not university based, but they're available for people anytime, and they provide confidential help, or Samaritans specifically. And I think, we do actually have some great systems that are already implemented.
It's just raising awareness to them in that way, I guess.
100%. And that's something we could do very easily, actually.
So I just want to say just one last question. Can I vote for all three of you? Because you've all been lovely, but also I think all three of you have really, really strong policy ideas, and it's really, really refreshing to see that. There's just such strong ideas and sort of just a really sort of human touch to it, and very sort of, you have a really clear understanding of it and a really good understanding of people, I think, as well. So I guess that sort of concludes our little Meet the Candidates. Thank you very much for coming. Are we ready to wrap up, I guess? So thank you very much for watching this Meet the Candidates session on Surge TV. I'm Byron Lewis. Good afternoon.